Oh, a budget deck? What the fuck? You guys wanna know what Drake was playing when he started from the bottom? He was playing this deck, and now he's freaking rich. He can play 5-color decks and spend $5,000 just on the mana base because that's how Magic is nowadays. But the thing with this budget deck is, it can actually win games.
Nice.
It's really strong and powerful because mono black is mono black. And now you're probably asking yourself, oh Mr. Silverwolf, how can a budget deck win? How can a budget deck win without Cyclonic Rift? Hey buddy, watch and learn. The Grim. No, not Grim Lavamancer. No, not Grim Monolith. Syr Konrad the Grim. He is a 5-mana 4/5 human knight. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Syr Konrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Pay 2, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard.
Wow.
Right off the bat, 50 cents. No, not the rapper, 50 cents for our general. My bitch is bad and budget. This deck can be a slow and painful ride for your opponents or a swift and quick death. You get to decide. First off, Dredge. Golgari Thug and Stinkweed Imp for your Dredge 4 and Dredge 5. Curious enough, there ain't a lot of many good Dredge mono black cards, but these guys will get the job done. And for cheap. Now for some mono black mill. Extractor Demon. He's a 6-mana 5/5 flying demon, obviously. Whenever another creature leaves the battlefield, you may have target player put the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. So when a creature leaves the battlefield, each opponent will lose 1 life. Then you get to mill and make them lose even more life if they hit creatures. And Mind Rack Harpy. She's a 4-mana 3/2 flying harpy creature, enchantment, whatever. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each player put the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. So milling for 12 in total, chances are you will hit creatures with that. Next up, artifacts. Altar of the Brood. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 1 card. Altar of Dementia. Sacrifice a creature. Target player mills equal to the sacrificed creature's power. And Mind Crank. Budget combo alert. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So let me get this straight. If they hit more creatures, they lose more life. Then they mill more cards, making them lose more life. Then milling more cards. Black is great at making a lot of mana, even on a budget, surprisingly. Bubbling Muck doubles your swamps until end of turn. Cabal Stronghold is a Cabal Coffers that doesn't cost $75. And Song of the Dam adds mana for each creature card in your graveyard. Now what to do with all that mana? Yes, Sheer Trauma lets you sink all your mana and mill each player for that amount. Any other player may help you pay for that cause, but buddy, let's face it, chances of that happening are slim and shady. And Dread Summons mills each player as well, but for each creature card that hits the graveyard, you get to put a zombie into play. Now pair this up with a sack outlet and you get to dish out a lot of damage. Now here's a couple of sweet cards you get to play after you're done milling your opponents. Grave Purge returns all creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library, dealing 1 to each opponent for each of those creatures. And well, a black deck without Reanimation is not a black deck. Blood and Bones lets you sack a creature to return a creature card from your graveyard to play, and a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So you can sack a creature, then Blood for Bones resolves, you can bring that creature back and another creature card into your hand, making your opponent lose 3 life in the process. Same thing for Dread Return. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Flashback, sacrifice 3 creatures. Life loss for your enemies, value for you. Playcrafter and Merciless Executioner are bonkers in this deck. Each player sacks a creature when they come into play. So with 4 players, that's 4 creatures hitting the graveyard, hitting your opponents for 4 life in the process with Konrad. Same is true for the Eldest Reborn. Each opponent sacks a creature, then each opponent discards a card, then you get to reanimate a creature card from your graveyard. A lot of value, yes. And Massacre Girl, truly underplayed. When Massacre Girl enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So she can possibly wipe the board, and for each small creature destroyed this way, you get to deal damage to your opponents before Konrad dies. Without paying an arm and a leg, we have some pretty good tutors that go for cheap. Buried Alive lets you dish 3 creatures from your library into your graveyard, dealing 3 damage to each opponent. Mausoleum Secrets lets you search your library for a black card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. And final potting, you put a card into your hand and a card in your graveyard. And now for the big kahuna card, the oh so budget janky mega win con of the century, Morality Shift. You've probably never seen this card before, but let me explain. Exchange your graveyard and library, then shuffle your library. Yes, almost an auto kill with Konrad on the battlefield, but if someone destroys Konrad in response, then you just cry and regret ever watching this video in the first place, and you go build a 5-color deck and spend $5,000 on the mana base because that's what Drake did, and Drake is awesome.
Yeah, boy.